This projector here does not belong to me. This projector belongs to the hotel. If I take this projector and put it in my car and drive it out of your very tough security gates, and the guy opens the boot and catches me, that is theft. I've tried to steal the projector. However, if I write a note saying that I am taking the projector for a repair, I'm a projector repairman. If I leave the note and take the projector, put it in the car, the security guard stops me, that's a little bit different. That's a fraud. It's not theft, it's fraud. The difference is I have lied. I've written a lie to somebody. I'm not really taking it for a repair. I'm stealing it. The difference between fraud and theft is a fraud has a lie called a misrepresentation. That is the fundamental difference. And that is the challenge that you people have. You have to spot this fundamental lie in the books of accounts. A thief will take the projector and run away with it. A fraudster is clever. He thinks about it. He lies, takes the projector and walks away with it. He then leaves a lie in the books of accounts saying that he has spent the money on something else. This is a fundamental difference between fraud and theft. So, in terms of fraud, there are 4 indicators of fraud. The misrepresentation is the lie. There has to be intent. Much like the Theft Act, you have to prove in a court of law that the fraudster intended to do the event, and there has to be prejudice or potential prejudice. Somebody has to lose something. And finally, it has to be illegal. I do a lot of work in the African continent. In a lot of countries, corruption is not illegal. If there's no law against it, it is legal. It is called a facilitation fee, not a bribe. So you have to consider these 4 issues. In terms of the misrepresentation in your books of accounts, somebody steals $1 million. They lie in the books of account. They say it was spent on training or going to conferences, and it wasn't. It's a fraud. A lot of frauds manifest themselves in terms of counterfeit or forgery. Can somebody help me with the difference between counterfeit and forgery? Anybody on the front row like to help me? What's the difference between a counterfeit and a forgery? Fictitious document. A counterfeit document is a fictitious document. It is not real. A forged document or a forged instrument is a real document with a change on it. So counterfeiting with photocopiers nowadays, we can clone many documents. If I want to be a chartered accountant, I can print a certificate on my computer and print it out and it's a counterfeit. Alternatively, I can take somebody else's off the wall, change their name to my name. That is a forgery. Forgery, we can use mechanical erasure, chemicals we can use to change the details on documents. We can obliterate, take out names, words. We can insert numbers. If a forged check is for $10, we can insert 3 zeros after it. We can alter, and surgical tampering is using hypodermic needles to scratch ink off. We can look at this a little bit later. So counterfeiting and forgery are crucial for fraud. What was that document? What was that note I just put up on the screen? Did you see it? $20. It was a dollar bill. Was it 20? Would you like to have a look? Sorry, I'm only giving you 2 seconds. That is the length of time you have as a CFO to spot a fraud. Time is crucial. What was it? $1, 20, $1. We have a mix of opinion. This is a $1 bill. It's called a raised note. This is how fraudsters are making $19 profit on every note. They take a $1 bill and they bleach the ends. They'll take a batch of these bills, not just one. There'll be a batch of 1,000 of them. They'll bleach the ends, and then they will photocopy onto the ends $20. You can see here, there's a little mismatch there. There it's very good. And in a lot of countries, when they pay with dollar bills for things, they put an elastic band around the middle and they count it. 20, 40, 60, 80. It's really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is called a raised note. I'd like to think in terms of forgery. Let's take an example of check fraud. Check fraud is probably one of the biggest fraudsters' forging events. Check fraud is big worldwide. Until we all go electronic with our banking systems, it always will be. Check fraud is syndicated. There is a production line. It is a big business. It is not one person stealing a check and putting it into a bank account. It is syndicated. The syndicates operate in that, number one, a check is intercepted in the post. So in your businesses, you'll have a mail room. You may well issue checks and they're sent to the mail room to be delivered. Either that mail sack is stolen or somebody in your mail room is a member of the syndicate. They will take out checks. Checks are then sold to wholesalers. So in that mail bag there will be perhaps money, perhaps insurance certificates, credit card statements, bank statements, many documents. The checks are all segregated and sold to the check wholesaler in the syndicate. The checks are then sold to scrutineers. The scrutineer looks at each check. Is it easy to change? Is it difficult to change? If it's too difficult with a very long name on it, with no gaps at the beginning or end, it's not worth much money to the syndicate. If it's a very easy name to change, like Pay BP, that could be changed into a lot of things. If it's $10 the check, but it's got lots of gaps after the number to make the amount increase, then that to the scrutineer is worth a lot more money. He develops a menu, a price list for checks. Number 4, the scrutineers look through for the soft checks. Those are the ones that are easy to change. The checks are then sold to the forgers. The forgers do all the stuff you see on Leonardo DiCaprio's movie, Catch Me If You Can. That's the exciting stuff. They change the details on the checks. That's what the forgers do at number 6. Number 7, the forged checks are then sold on for about 40% of the revised value. Now let's think about this. A check is stolen. The bank reconciliation is done about at the end of the month. Therefore, the checks are stolen on the 1st, 2nd or 3rd of the month. The fraudster has got 27 days to do this, to go through this process. How does the fraudster know that the bank reconciliation is done at the end of the month? How does the fraudster know that he's got 28 days to do this? Quite often the fraudster is the guy doing the bank reconciliations, the CFO, one of the accountants. 85% of frauds are committed by people not only inside the organisation, but inside the department. So let's lose the myth of the fraudster being this bad guy from outside the organisation. The fraudsters are within. More seriously, syndicates have members in the organisations as well. So the forged cheque is then sold to a middleman who passes the cheques on to negotiators. Negotiators work in banks. Negotiators are syndicate members that work in banks. I have a bank account in England where I go once a year on holiday. For 11 months a year, there's nothing going through this bank account. The people controlling my bank account know this. They can put these stolen cheques through my bank account and I wouldn't know. They're also in charge of my bank statements. The money goes in and out. They can deal with that. Negotiators are plants in banks to facilitate the cheque fraud syndicate. And two days later, the money is withdrawn or transferred to another account and transferred to another account. That becomes money laundering. Fraud is the start of a money laundering chain. So a cheque fraud syndicate, it's a business, it's big business, and it makes a lot of money. Let's pretend we're changing some details on a cheque. I have stolen a cheque from your business. It's payable to XYZ. If I can change the name on that cheque to Simon, I can put it in my bank account. This is how the fraudster does it. The cheque is payable to ABC Company Limited. If you can insert Bob Martin Trading As, you can put it into a Bob Martin bank account. If the cheque is payable to Sasol, and look at the red is the change.